Yeah, the problem though with friendships is that I think he's like the most popular child at school and everybody wants to do everything for him, push him in his wheelchair or carry everything for him. So we're like, leave him to do it.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here again with Dana to continue our conversations. Hopefully it's been helpful for everyone listening. We are continuing our conversations today about function. We are very lucky to have another incredible parent with us with a great deal of lived experience, willing to share her valuable insights and experience. Hello, Kellie. Welcome to TheraBytes Season 3.
Thank you for having me.
So nice to have you here. It's
so
actually
nice.
like we talk about this sort of stuff all the time, and we just figured it would be so great just to share your perspective on this. And I've just watched from afar about how your family does life, and I love it. I absolutely love how you guys do life, and
sometimes
there's so much to share. But it's the ups and the downs, and it's the decisions that you've got to make, which you probably don't even realise you're making on a day-to-day basis, and that just has so much wealth in terms of other people learning from each other. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We have some questions, and as you know, we're really basing all this on the F words, and that's the whole theme of everything we're talking about. We're really focusing on function, and I think function is one of those things that, as I said sort of last time, it's all about the things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis. We all have different jobs or roles that we need to do to get through each day. But for our children, it looks different at different life stages. I thought the first question that we had for you was, what does function look like for your child? You know, when you think about early years and then like transitioning to being at home and school, and, you know, what does that even look like? Broad question, I know. Start wherever you like, but yeah.
Okay, well, for Nate, it's obviously changed a lot over the years. So originally he wasn't very functional, I guess you would say, at all. He was on some breathing support for 9 months, which really limited him in terms of being able to move, eat, anything like that. So originally it was just about, I guess, getting the function of getting his lungs working so that we could then get him out and about and starting to do stuff. So then at about 5 months he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, so we then needed to start doing therapy and stuff to start getting the movement in place, getting other things in place. And our goals in those first few years were just to try and, even though we knew they were delayed, to try and meet those early milestones of originally rolling, sitting, crawling, and then he walked by the time he was 3. And the other big thing that we had that was a little bit different at that time is Nate was 100% fed via a nasogastric tube until he was 12 months old.
Wow.
So then we had to go through the whole learning to feed with a child with oral aversion and getting him to put textures into his mouth, not choke, safe swallow, all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't the normal sort of start to life for him, and we had to adapt a little bit and do things on the fly, I guess, and figure out what we were doing as we were going. So,
how did you make the decisions about that when there's just so much happening at that time? Like, I think you painted a very beautiful picture in the sense of like what your family had to do, the challenge that you faced. So if you've never done this before, how did you prioritize what to work on, or, you know, what happened at that time?
We quite often had to take his lead a lot.
Okay.
You know, he, like I said, he was born with a very serious lung condition, so he would tire very easily. Too much physical sort of stuff, he would very quickly, could quite rapidly go downhill. So, a lot of it was led by him. I do also have 2 daughters who were 4 and 2 at the time. So a lot of it was dictated by them as well, telling him what he had to do, constantly singing to him, reading him books, that sort of stuff to try and help him learn to talk. And, you know, they would love getting involved in doing some therapy and getting his limbs moving and stretching him and that sort of stuff. So it was a good way to get them involved and build that sibling bond at the same time.
What was the biggest thing that you felt like you had to learn back then? It sounds like a lot of things are quite instinctive in a way, like having the girls involved and you know, really just encouraging him to play. How much was instinctive versus how much that you had to get support for to
Well, I had to
out?
learn how to put a nasogastric tube down because he used to pull those out regularly. So I got pretty good at putting him in a headlock with my legs and getting it down myself.
Oh, my goodness.
But as far as I guess learning other components, it was just a case of just sort of figuring it out. And I had to take a bit of a step back. I had obviously had 2 older children who were neurotypical, developmentally actually quite advanced.
Yeah.
So I found that quite hard. It was a bit of a grieving process that I had to go through, I think, to accept that Nate's life at that time was different, but also his life going forward was going to be very different. And I think for me, one of the main things I needed to do was accept that grief and deal with that. And every now and then it does obviously rear its ugly head and pop back in, and you just need to learn to deal with it again. But I think it's important to do that first before you're trying to then fix everything and get everything organised.
Yes.
Such great advice.
Really great advice.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the outcomes that you wanted to see, like moving now in school. So what year is he in school? Like, what's he going to this year?
Going to year 3.
Year 3. How time passes. So I guess what do you really think about sort of now? I know we've talked a little bit about sort of the early years. When you think about what he needs right now, how do you sort of come up with that, or what do you see are things that are important to him that you need to work on?
So one of the main things we want for him in the school environment is to be as independent as possible, and to be able to thrive in friendships, academically, socially, emotionally, in one big bundle. So that has taken a bit. So it took a lot of discussions before he started school. The year before, I was already in discussions with them to try and put plans in place. And obviously as the years have gone on and evolved, and his development has improved, we are changing things constantly, but I think the most important thing for us has been communication with the school, and being very open about the fact. For example, with him with independence, I've basically said that I want him without an EA with him or a support person at recess or lunch, so that he can develop friendships with his friends, because he is quite prone to chatting to adults when the opportunity's there rather than developing age-appropriate friendships. So that's one thing we've instilled there.
That's great.
And just trying to change, for example, if they're doing a task where it's about learning to write, then he will do that. But if it's about writing a story and the structure of a story, he'll either do a voice to text, or he'll type it, or he'll dictate it to his EA and they will write it, and then he'll edit it. So that way he's not having to write it himself, which is really tiring for him. But he can still, get the educational purpose that's required there. So it just takes a bit of tweaking to try and get the best for him. I think the other thing that's really important that I've discussed with the school is he does tire very easily. So if there's something they're doing that's not important educationally, or, for example, art, he's probably never going to be a world-renowned artist. He doesn't love art. So, quite often he'll sit on the beanbag and read a book or just rest. We do have those sort of things in place as well.
So you've really looked forward into his day, into his week to try to, it sounds like you're doing everything you can to maximise the moments where he can learn and get the most out of it. When did you feel like you first started to do that? Because even when you described just then about writing something a bit more creatively and to be able to do voice to text, like that is such a great way to make sure he can still be part of that creativity process without a fine motor skill being something that limits him in terms of speed. When did you, how did you connect that? When did that start to evolve?
As he kind of moved probably from pre-primary to year 1, and the gap physically became a bit bigger between him and his peers. And at first it seemed that then intellectually the gap was also there. But with a bit more kind of chatting to him, they realised that actually academically he was fine. It's just that he physically couldn't do the task. As we noticed that gap started to widen of what others could do that he was still struggling with, we just needed to find ways that he could still show that he knew the knowledge, and that way it could be assessed against the curriculum. The other thing we did is because he does get very tired. You know, a day for him will be quite variable from day to day as to how tired he is.
Yeah.
So in his subjects, rather than so for example in maths, if they do a test and he doesn't do well in the test, if he has demonstrated that he can actually understand the concept and do the concept another time, he's not marked down just because he didn't perform in the testing environment.
Sure,
so we just try and put those sort of things in place so that it's a bit more of an even playing field for him to get the best out of school.
That sounds so good.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds
We're
like
very lucky we've got a good school.
Yeah, I was going to say, the schools sound like they are incredibly supportive. Were they like that right from the beginning? How did that evolve?
Well, the girls were already at the school, so we decided to go to mainstream school because academically it was felt that Nate would be okay in a mainstream school. So, like I said, before we started, the first 12 months I was in discussions with them. We did up a All About Me kind of booklet with some photos and some information that was sent out to the teachers. And then we actually did a different one that was sent out to the parents of the kids in his class so that the children knew that there was a child coming with cerebral palsy, that they were already a little bit informed before he started school. And that book was then kind of kept in the classroom. And it was district updated as need be.
Wow.
So that we could basically get started from there and give him the best chance.
So great.
And just also, if you get in early, we got in early and got send out so that everything was ready on the first day of school. So he wasn't kind of starting on the back foot, waiting for equipment that he needed to come because it can take a while. So I think it's just all about being prepared and having discussions with them both ways with what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
That's amazing. And did you find that they needed to make any amendments to his play area or the classroom or anything like that to help with his independence?
So he had a couple of things done, like around the play area. They put a few more ramps and stuff in to make it easier getting in and out of the class.
Yeah.
He rarely uses his wheelchair at school, but there are days that he does need it, so he has those. They've also tried to make sure that he is in the larger classroom, as in area, so that there is a bit more room for him to move around because he's not as steady as opposed to trying to get in and out of squeeze through. And they just got things like, we use thick pencils. Even though he's in year 3, we still use thick pencils, thick textures because they're easier for him. So we just make sure we've got that sort of stuff in place.
That's amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it? We've been talking a lot about, when we think about function and what it is that you need to be able to do from a day-to-day basis. It's not about doing it just like everyone else. It's actually about finding the right adaptations, the right equipment, the right environment for that person to be able to thrive. And I feel like we sort of defined it last week, but I feel like you have just described it.
Nailed it.
Perfectly. And I think that there is so much in that because, number one, if you're wondering whether a school can do all those things, you're in Perth, Western Australia, and your school does. It's a mainstream school, and it's good to know what is possible. But it actually does take that work, though, doesn't it? It does take that, foresight, making those meetings, be on the front foot. Yeah, how did you learn to do that? Are you that way inclined anyway?
You're a planner.
See, it comes in handy, doesn't it? It really does.
I guess for me, I just wanted to make sure that he had every opportunity possible to him. Like I said, we knew right from the start that his life was mapped in a different direction to what we thought it would be when we were pregnant. So I've always wanted to make sure that he is able to achieve whatever he is capable of. And so, that just meant that I knew that I needed to step up and make sure that as his parent, I was advocating for him to make sure that the school were doing everything they could do to make sure he's achieving in the school environment as well. So,
And the education's such a big part of that, isn't it? You having the books, the All About Me books, they're great because, you do have different staff that might come in from time to time, and if they don't know about it, they don't know how to adapt or to make those changes. But, you see what it is that he's capable of in each of the settings. He knows that he can try to do more because he's in a safe environment to do it. And I think that's all part of it, isn't it? That safety.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been really lucky. Like I said, we've got wonderful EAs, wonderful teachers. And we've been, even with teachers that come in or EAs that come in, I have a chat to them in the morning And I do say to them, look, he's an 8-year-old boy. He may fall over, but we just don't want you helicoptering around him and hovering.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to do things himself and have a go.
Yeah.
I just think if there's constantly someone on top of him, it makes it a bit hard for him to then be developing age-appropriate friendships.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And I love how you dabbled there into friendships, another F word, which we'll definitely delve into later. But it just shows, though, right? If you can set up the environment, you're really working on him being as functional as possible. So, I guess some of the things we've been working on has been for him to be able to go into the playground, have better balance so that he can deal with uneven surfaces. All of that actually just means he can navigate around the playground without an adult right next to him.
Yeah, the problem with friendships is that I think he's like the most popular child at school and everybody wants to do everything for him, push him in his wheelchair or carry everything for him. So we're like, leave him to do it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
it just shows the kind of setting.
Yeah.
Now, from where the wisdom that you have right now, if you were to give parents some pieces of advice, 1 or 2 pieces of advice, if they've got a child that's currently, 3 or 4 and they're just starting to think about school and it seems a bit daunting, that you probably remember that time going, what does school even look like?
Yeah.
From your
and I now even think that about high school, which is a few years away.
I was just scared to myself in high school.
Give myself a few more years and then I'll stress.
Okay. We're still year 3. What would you say to parents who are sort of coming through this journey and trying to work it all out, still in the early intervention years, but they know school is looming, when it comes to function and goals and what to work on? What would you say?
Firstly, I'd say just make sure that you look after yourself first, and then just go around and have a look at different schools. What works for one child isn't going to work for another. So, and that's not even with a child with any sort of disability. That is across the board. So you could have a look at different schools, and then once you've made your decision on your school, it's just really always about open communication, and then. Working in conjunction with your different therapy teams and doctors, you'll know kind of what goals you want your child to achieve, whether it be for a term or for the year. And just keep adapting things with those people that are working with them, whether it's EAs or teachers. Keep the communication open so that then you can make changes as you need to. You can pull things back if you need to. You can add things in. You can reach out to somebody if something's not working to try and adjust it. You get your OTs out to have a look at the school. So for me, the main thing really is about really open communication with the school and your therapy teams and your doctors to make sure everyone's on the same page to make sure you can achieve them. Best you can.
That's so good. And do you find that you've got like similar goals? Like, one goal that you might be working on, everyone kind of knows about it. Like if you're working on that?
Yeah.
Or do they vary depending on the different settings?
It does vary a little bit. I mean, we've got a few obviously overarching goals that all basically are around, independence and functionality. So, just basically the basic things of, being able to move around, get around, communicate, eat, all those sort of things. But then there's smaller goals within those that are the ones that you kind of need to tweak a little bit to then eventually reach the bigger one. I guess it's similar to the long-term, short-term kind of goal situation.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing this. I've already learnt so much. We're starting pre-primary this year. I just hadn't even thought about the whole independence in the schoolyard like that hadn't we're still in the trying to remove the cotton wool that we've wrapped really tightly and so I'm still like, oh my gosh, we need an EA so he doesn't fall over and hurt himself and doesn't accidentally get knocked over by kids running around, and you just made me completely flip that and think, oh my gosh, but how does he, because friendships would look different when you've got an adult right there.
And I think you need to remember
that freedom.
Kids fall over.
Yes.
All of my other kids fall over.
They hurt themselves
they do.
Yeah.
So, and obviously when you've had a bit of a long medical journey like you have, like I have, with your child, you do wrap them in cotton wool. I know that, I probably am a lot more protective of Nate, of letting him do things on his own, but it'll come. It'll come. So
great.
even
it's
around
really
toileting and stuff, we sort of said to them with toileting, he's to go on his own. Basically, he'll call you if he needs you, but
Even that's these are big steps, like to have independence around all of those sorts of things. That's and just another thing to think about in these early stages when you're working up to that. Because there are so many little parts to getting independent toileting. That's all stuff I'm learning now as well. So that's just fantastic advice and really got me thinking about my goals that I want for our next intensive. So thank you, Kellie.
No worries.
Kellie, there's just so much to learn from you. Thank you so much for imparting some of your wisdom today. And I know it, as you reflect on your journey, you probably go, wow, this, what you actually did back then, but what you did has led to where you are now. And he's just a great kid. Oh my goodness. He's a wonderful kid. He's awesome. I love it. I love spending time with your family. Every time I spend time with your family, I'm like, this is just a wicked family. They're great. I love it. It's
she
just
hasn't
wonderful.
been there all holidays.
It was a long holidays. Yeah. And it just keeps the balance in mind. We don't do therapy to be good at therapy. We do therapy so that kids can actually go out there and do what they need to do in life. And ultimately, that's always the main goal, is that he can be as functional as he can. He can make as many friendships as a result, and be deep and meaningful ones, and just live, love life. Life.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again to all of our listeners. I hope you really enjoyed that. I loved that. But
really
stay tuned. We'll be talking about the F words a whole lot more in the coming weeks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.